Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and I'm here with my co-host, Elliot Margolis, on the big screen this time. And we're continuing a discussion we started a while back with Kevin O'Reilly talking about global warming. And as you can see, we're doing global warming part 2 with Kevin. So, Kevin, take it away.
Okay. Thanks again, George and Elliot, for hosting. I really appreciate being able to give my opinions out here. In the last episode, I was talking about what's the evidence for global warming, and I ran through some of the objections. And what you see on the screen there is, I can get it to, I have run through the first 4, and I was just about to start on number 5. So this is a continuation of the previous show. One more thing I wanted to say about the little ice age, or the coming ice age, is people have bet on this. So people have bet that it's going to be colder in the next few years, and everyone that's bet on the side of this coming ice age has lost money. So if you want to make some quick money, bet that the in the next 5 or 10 years that the temperature is going to go up and you'll win money. But make sure they put it in escrow, because there's a couple of Russian guys who have never paid up. $10,000 they bet. So, okay, so to go on with the, this one might be my personal favorite. Pause in temperature increases from 1998 to 2012. I can't see it, but I think it's 2012. Okay, so here we have a model by NASA. So again, you can see that the climate models, the green line, are mirrored pretty well by the temperature. So this again is, the models are tested against actual observations. And you can see this block right here is where this pause argument comes from. So in 1998, there was a huge spike, as you can see. And the temperature went up a little bit up to 2012. And people said, some people, not in peer-reviewed journals, oh, wait a minute, it's a pause, we're gonna have global cooling, and but what they actually did is cherry pick. That's basically what happened here. So you could pick other places like 1941 to 1951 or something, and come out with. So anytime somebody makes an argument like, well, from this year to this year, ask yourself, why did they pick these 2 years? So that's one problem with this, which is cherry picking. The second thing is that some people argue, well, it's unexplainable. They can't explain it. But the IPCC report, and to go back, I explained what that is, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, very authoritative, says in the bold there, the reduced trend in radiative forcing is primarily due to volcanic eruptions and the timing of the downward phase of the 11-year solar cycle. So they can explain it. It also is explained partly by El Nino and La Nina. So when there's El Nino, it gets warmer, and La Nina, these are Pacific temperatures in the ocean and winds. When it's La Nina, it gets a little colder. So it can be explained by those things, but it's perfectly natural for a graph that's going up to go down at some places or to hold steady. So it's not really anything unusual. So based on this, the evidence is cherry-picked in order to make an argument. So that's one thing. The second thing is, you'll notice that after that period, it started going up again. And some of the people that made the argument said, well, that's partly because of El Nino. Well, okay, if it's because of El Nino from 2012 to 2020, then it might be La Nina from 1998 to 2012. So you can't have it both ways. So the evidence does not support this. It was cherry picked. The sources are not peer reviewed. Again, peer reviewed articles, as far as I know, have not made this claim. And the objectors say that there's no cause identified by scientists. Some of them. Some people just say, hey, how come there's a pause? So I'm not impugning the motives of everybody. So that one gets a 1 thumbs down. Okay, solar radiation is more important than greenhouse gases. So this one has a problem in that it doesn't follow. So you could make the argument, so if you look at solar radiation as the yellow line, it does kind of go along with the temperature is the orange line. It goes along with it for quite a while, and then it stops right when greenhouse gases are increasing, the solar activity goes down and the temperature goes up. I mean, look at it this way. What happens if temperature's going up now? What happens if the sun starts becoming more active? Oh my gosh. So the evidence tends to disprove this theory. It contradicts the claim since about 1960. The sources are not peer reviewed. We've seen this before, and the logic of it, the solar radiation activity has dropped while the temperatures have gone up. So as far as we know, that's not a big factor. It's a factor. Solar radiation matters, and volcanic activity matters. Nobody that I know of is making the argument that humans are the only cause. They're in combination. So this claim goes out the window. And then the last one that I have here, first scientists were alarmed about global cooling. This was in the 1960s and 70s. And now they say, oh, no, we were wrong before, but now they're saying, oh, it's global warming. But in fact, a study was done of the literature, and it turns out that most people in the 60s and 70s, based on just the articles in peer-reviewed journals, were saying there's warming. They were worried about warming. Some of them were like, they didn't say anything one way or the other, and 10% predicted cooling. So there's never been a point where most scientists in the last 70 years are saying, oh, we got to watch out for global cooling. It's some, and sometimes I wonder if it's the same people that are claiming it now. Okay, we're going to have global cooling coming up. So it might be those same people. It might be that the climate scientists that say there's global warming have never said there's global cooling. So that one, the evidence shows that few scientists were alarmed about cooling, and the sources spreading the idea are not, again, in peer-reviewed journals. So what do we have? We have the claim that the Earth's temperature is increasing significantly due partly to greenhouse gas emissions, supported by strong evidence, reliable sources, and clear cause and effect connections. Meanwhile, we have these objections that we've run through that have either 2 thumbs down or 1 thumbs down. They're weak or they're very weak. And so I think looking at this, the evidence seems to point that there really is global warming, and we really do need to do something about it. So one of the questions that comes up is, so we're talking about probabilities. And we saw before the probability, according to one of the science boards, is 95% chance of, so it's not 100%. But think about it this way. In 2001, after the terrorist attack, there was some percentage of chance. At one point, Donald Rumsfeld said, even if there's a 1% chance, we have to be prepared for this. It could have catastrophic effects. So, and I support that. I supported, trying to prevent another attack on American society. So good for them. In 2004, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, especially by one researcher, but in general, people were saying, we could have a pandemic. We need to prepare for that. Now, it wasn't 100% chance, but we have this looming threat out there that we need to think about. It's serious. It's slower. It's not like a pandemic or an attack, a terrorist attack. It's slower, but it's a threat. And so one of the questions is, what's the threat? So let's first talk about, before we move on to that, if the scientists are wrong, what is it we're going to do? We're going to, if you follow, we're going to have energy independence, preserve the rainforest, sustainability, green jobs, livable cities, renewables, clean water, healthy children. Health is a big effect. And the guy in the back is saying, what if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? So it's possible that, and certainly some people are exaggerating. They're taking the cherry picking the worst possible things, and I've tried not to do that. But okay, so we spend some money, we make some changes, and we move to a new economy. That's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But what if the scientists are right? We are messing with the very foundation of our planet, and it could be catastrophic. It's not likely to, but it's going to be terrible for millions of people. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's talk about sea levels. So here we'll use some of the same methods, won't go into as much detail. The sea levels are rising due to greenhouse gases. So if you look at this in bold, it could reach 30 to 60 millimeters, which is about 1 to 2 feet by 2100, if greenhouse gases emissions are sharply reduced 2%. That's what all of the activists want to do. But if you look down here, 2 to 3 feet, if we don't, if it goes beyond that, 2 to 3 feet is a serious problem. And it's a serious problem partly in Beverly, in our own city. We're a coastal city. So that's one factor. The next quote, recent decades, sea level rise has accelerated. It's not linear. It's going up more rapidly as we go along. So it tends to support the idea that greenhouse gases are causing it. So if you look here, the blue is the lower estimates. So when IPCC does its reports, it does lower scenario ranges, average, and higher ranges. And so that would be, the lower ranges are 20 inches or about 1.6 feet, so 1.5 feet. The higher ranges are 3.3 feet, and we don't want that. That would have very dramatic effects. In terms of the sea level rising, it rises because it's getting a little warmer, and that means it's expanding. And it's rising because Greenland and Antarctica ice sheets have been losing mass. Now, I know there's some controversy about this, but this is IPCC report from 2014. If you follow the cursor, Greenland ice sheets very likely substantially increased from 34 gigatons per year from this time period, so up to 2001, to 215 gigatons per year from 2002 to 2011. So that's a huge increase. And Antarctica ice sheets likely increased from 30 to 147 gigatons. That's a little more controversial. There really are articles saying, whoa, wait a minute, Eastern Antarctica is adding snow and ice. Most people in the peer-reviewed literature agree that Western Antarctica is losing ice, but there is a dispute about what's happening in Eastern Antarctica. I didn't talk about the Arctic because it's not over land. And if you have a glass of water and your ice melts, it doesn't change the level. So I'm not talking about that. So here is a graph of Greenland from 2002 to 2016. So the higher peaks are winter, lower summer, winter, summer, and you can see it's tending like stairs to go down. They had predicted this. What they didn't predict was this, right here, 2012. The summer of 2012 was shocking to the researchers. Their models did not predict such a drop. And so there again, they do the model, then they compare it to what actually happened. And they've been off sometimes. Unfortunately for all of us, they've generally been off on the low side. That is, the greenhouse gases are worse, or the warming is worse than they had expected. This goes up to 2016. It further goes down because in 2019, August of 2019, they had the largest single month drop since they've been recording of ice in Greenland. Frightening. It actually measurably increased the level of the ocean in 1 month. I mean, it was like, 0.3 millimeters, but the ocean's big. So they've had some ice melts that have been like, oh, wait a minute, this is worse than we expected. And that's the photo on the right is of ice melting in Greenland. Okay, so based on this careful collection of evidence, models are based compared to observation. So that's 2 thumbs up. Leading scientists agree on the claim that sea levels are rising. There's disagreement about how much and how there's different scenarios, but they do agree on that. And they explained why. Expansion and ice melt are reasons that the sea level is rising. So they demonstrated the cause and effect. Okay, so one question that comes up is, what are the effects of this? Okay, so the temperature is going up. So I'm not sure how we're doing on time. How much time do I have left?
About 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'll run through these. I definitely wanted to get at least to this slide. So flooding, here's some of the effects of global warming. Flooding, storms, wildfires, heat waves, drought, refugees, and then conflict because of the refugees and war, health problems, slower economic growth, and it's costing us all money already. So I'm going to run through these. You know about the hurricanes. They cost money. We're paying through taxes, and we should, to help our fellow citizens that are flooded out. So that's a problem. The floods are actually happening. You can see there's a blue sky over that guy. They're happening sometimes on sunny days. So the sea level is not like always overwhelming. It's when there's a storm, because it's higher and it's warmer, the storm is a little worse. And these storm surges, we saw with Hurricane Sandy, wiping out flooding the subways in New York City. It makes it worse. It's not going to be like everybody gets flooded out. It's going to be the storms get a little worse, a little worse, a little worse. Okay, I put this in because it happens in Massachusetts too. So this is in Winthrop. They had terrible storms in 2018. And I like to point out the irony of the green energy truck going through the flood. We might have needed more green energy before. Maybe we could avoid the flood. Okay, this is Beverly. And the purple is 3 feet flooding. And if we had a Category 4 hurricane, which areas of Beverly, so you can see Pride's Crossing over here, Hale Street here, and the Cummings Center here. But if we close in on the Cummings Center, 3 feet of water or more. That obviously along the Bass River, all those areas are threatened by possible flooding. My wife and I live in a flood zone. So it has an effect on Beverly. And so it'd be great if we could slow down this global warming. Okay. Wildfires, you've seen the wildfires in California, and there are many more of them, and they're worse. Things are drier. Some of that is mismanagement, and some of that is the temperature is higher. In Australia, we saw in the winter of 2019, 1920, we saw these huge fires. In fact, you could see them from satellites. Australia looked differently. So one thing that's kind of interesting is they've added new colors to temperature charts. So they never had temperatures go above 115, and now they're going above 115 in the summer, winter for us, in Australia, and they had to add to their chart. That's a sign that there's more heat waves. Closer to home, we see from UMass, they've done a study, and if you look at 1990, there were just a handful of days over 90 degrees or over 100. And by 2070, this estimate is that there'd be around 90 days above 90 and 33 days in the summer above 100. And for people that live without air conditioning in cities, they need to be able to go to some place like a gym or someplace to get out of the heat. People die from this kind of heat. Okay, there are droughts. The war in Syria is a very, very complex war. It's not due primarily to climate change, but it's partly due to that. And there's a State Department memo that got leaked in the big leak there that said that we got to be careful. There's a drought going on, and people are moving to the cities, and it's going to aggravate any conflict there. Okay, Hurricane Maria. So if you look here, that's Puerto Rico. And when Hurricane Maria hit, Massachusetts ended up with 7,000 Puerto Rican refugees. These are climate refugees. There's no doubt about it. These are American citizens. They have every right to move within the United States. I have relatives in Puerto Rico named O'Reilly, oddly enough. And so I sympathize with them, but that has an effect on Massachusetts. Okay, you can see this map on the left and the glacier that's partly melted on the right. The blue area are the glaciers, and they are melting, and they are affecting the Indus, the Ganges, these are the main ones, and the Mekong rivers. And as they melt, they're increasing the water. So right now, Pakistan depends on the Indus for almost all of its agriculture. They're doing better. It's going up, but eventually it's going to go down. And when it does, the river is in China, and the Chinese want it for their people. I'm not supporting the Chinese, authoritarian, crazy, terrible government. They're going to take the water, and there's going to be conflict, or they're going to take it from Vietnam and Mekong or India, and that's a problem. So we could have conflicts. Meanwhile, Bangladesh is half the country is 5 feet or less above sea level, and 40 million people. There could be 20 million refugees. Probably not, but India does not want them. So they built a fence all the way around and guarded it. They do not want refugees. So you can see people are going to move, and other people are going to say, no way, you're not coming in. When people say, well, we've adjusted to climate change before. Yeah, well, there weren't 7 billion people on the planet. And when you go to move to adapt, they say you can't come in. So we're looking at conflict. And that's why the quadrennial review and the 2019 report was, this is a threat multiplier to the United States. There's more conflicts. We could get dragged into them. The other thing is the largest naval base in the world is at Norfolk, Virginia, and they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars because the sea level is rising and the storms are a little worse. There's tales of crazy things that have happened in dry docks. They had to get a submarine out of there, it would have been flooded out. So it's a national security threat. In terms of health, asthma has spiked in Massachusetts. Homes are flooded, even from rainstorms. The rainstorms are worse. And then you get mold in your house, and that increases asthma. It triggers unhealthy conditions all the way around. And it increases tropical diseases. So that's a factor. It spreads these diseases because it's getting warmer. Those areas are spreading. It's costing us money. It's costing us money right now. So if we take Dwight from the paper store, he's paying money out to subsidize oil, gas, and coal. And it's unbelievable the amount of money that goes to these fossil fuel companies. And President Biden just cut off some of that money. So I estimated, I took 133 million taxpayers and divided in the money, and it comes out to $278 a year. The cost of pollution, and you see what I did there? I made that dollar bill bigger than the other one, goes for health costs, goes for these floods and all that. It goes for insurance. So you have to pay for flood insurance, but also we're paying for crop insurance, and home insurance is more. And as I've talked about, national security. So we're already paying for this, and it's going to get worse. We're going to be paying more. Okay, so I've made the argument it's real, caused partly by human activity. It's serious. It's a threat. If you're interested in this, join a group. And these are two groups on the North Shore that I belong to. A lot of nice people. You know, feel free to join it. And we need to be thinking about our grandchildren. These are our 4 grandchildren. So that's why I do this. And I hope you keep an open mind and think about your confirmation bias. If you're against it, why are you against it? And what can you do to open your mind and base it on the evidence? And that's it. Boom.
Yeah, we made it right on time almost.
How about that? Do you have any questions?
That I'll say for another show because we haven't got the time.
Okay.
And again, as I think I've indicated, I come at this from a different perspective, mostly technical. And there's too many technical errors that are being spread around that I just can't buy into the concept. And I think that's.
Are we off the air now?
I have another show with Frank.
Frank, yeah.
He's going to continue his perspective on it, and we'll have to get together again with you and Frank and see how this thing works out. Because again, we can make a presentation, and very nice presentation, by the way. Obviously, you've done a lot of work, and obviously you've made this show before. So it's a smooth operation, but I think that things need to be discussed in a little more detail, and that's what the future is all about. Elliot, you were about to say.
Well, I was just going to have a question about, we have the people say that the ocean is warm. My question would be, aren't there underwater volcanoes which can warm up the ocean, which can also increase the sea level by definition?
Yeah,
and what does that have to do about the global warming? Is that adding to the global warming, or is that just not taken into consideration?
I don't know what scientists say about that. So I can't make any answer.
Right. Fair enough.
It's logical that the oceans would rise when they get warmer. We're talking about, a very small amount of warming. But the ocean is very large, and when it warms up, it's going to expand a little bit, and that can have effects. But I don't know about underwater volcanoes.
Okay, so we got a few questions we can save for the next time. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. And as we indicate, there's going to be a couple more shows that we want to present to you about global warming, climate change, and what's real about it, what's not real, and what can we do about it, and what should we do about it. So It's a lot of issues that are going to come forward in the next couple of years. So stay tuned and be prepared and get smart. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.
I look forward to it.